what's good? Apparently not my voice, holy shit. Alright, so we're staring at a completed, masked thing, but I've got to add depth to simulate some sort of shading, so that it doesn't just look like it's floating in place, and to clean up some of the issues. So, let us do that. What's up, Connor? My keyboard is so bright that I oftentimes have to turn numlock off. Like, there's no stupidity with regards to LEDs or anything, but it's very obviously what's the term? This is some kind of prank. What the fuck? Somebody said that you could zoom in on that earlier, but they lied to me. But, yeah, what I was saying earlier, my keyboard is fucking bright. And what's bright about it is just that the little blue indicator that's telling you that numlock is on, or scroll lock, or caps lock, or anything like that. And man, it's intense. I just didn't expect it to be so bright. So oftentimes, if you see me struggling with numbers for whatever reason, it's because I forgot to turn it off at the beginning of my stream, or turn it on rather. Just nuts. As if I keep it on while I'm sleeping, it just shines this beacon and distracts me. I don't think we have to do anything for the upper part. That's an old quote, man. That's an inside joke. What's up, Vic? How are you? Primal Korea. You can't say that. What's up, UED? What's up, Ultralisks? Welcome, guys. How are you? How's everybody? I like that. Let's go to... There we go. Alright, so that's a start. We're going to have another layer that's attached to the... the structure itself that will allow us to add a bit more. Something or other. More insightful comments. You have more form switch units? SMH. Yeah, I wouldn't add offensive capabilities to a unit like that. At least not through a generic auto attack. It's kind of neat to have this set of tiles for some reason. I don't know why. It's like I think it's neat to have any kind of extended set of tiles or whatever, but for me, it's like when I look at something like this, it's like, oh, interesting. You know, it's like stuff that you would have imagined existed in the beta or something. You know, like when you actually do it properly to some extent, i.e. you know, you take the time that you need to make sure that everything is looking correct. I think it ends up being pretty, it ends up feeling like you're rediscovering something. Because it's familiar, but it's different at the same time. I've always felt that about custom tiles. Like blends of existing assets into other categories. I also worked a little bit on the outline of my map a bit earlier. Looks like I'm going to need to tidy up the masking of these a little bit. That's okay. And this I'm still not sure about, just because like we're dealing with a snow pile, right? That's on snow. So like I don't know how that's gonna look at the end of the day. But guess we'll find out. Oh, yeah. Well, in that case, I would just build that into functionality of the ability. Right? Take another look at all this moment here. Like maybe it takes a little bit longer to revive a unit that is not dead, but if you cast it on a unit and they're like, make it deal a flat amount of damage. May say it deals 10 damage. If it targets a living unit. And so obviously if it hits them and there's no, and it doesn't kill them, then it doesn't do anything. It just deals damage to them. But that way you can have that functionality of them corpsing the unit and then fixing it up. I kind of like the idea that they would turn into almost, I don't know what your lore is for that, but like the interaction there would be what I would probably end up doing, and what I'll probably mention for the UED in my capacity when I do the Lazarus Agent ability, is actually the unit won't really be alive anymore. Like the entity is not going to be alive still. They'll be like zombified. You know? Which is sort of like by itself, it's already fucking wild to think about. Like, they'll behave identically to normal units, but maybe I'll change their unit responses. It's just the idea that the UED gives no fucks to that level. Like, I don't like the idea that they're fucking totalitarian or something. That doesn't seem like it vibes with the idea of an advanced, you know, military industrial complex. Not one that would be very long-lasting, you know? I could be wrong and idealist in that sense, but I feel like that wouldn't last very long, just by nature. So, my idea for that is, like, make them morally gray, right? Like, they definitely are willing to do some shit that most people would think is, a no-no. And that's fine, but the idea that you would just turn them into fucking Hitler or whatever seems really dumb. Which is what the art direction of the remaster implied, but also how I've seen it handled in a lot of cases, like fan campaigns or similar things in general. They like go for the Starship Troopers angle, or they try to make them boneheaded totalitarians, and it just, like, to me, it's the idea that they're going to be that, like that. They wouldn't last very long in a future realm, you know? What's up, Alexander? Yeah, I mean, that's basically what I'm thinking, is, like, they would mostly be a faction that doesn't... They find a way to get their goals accomplished, right? And their ways are not going to be agreed upon by everybody in theory, but they don't really give a shit about that. And they don't care about being morally in the right as much as they care about being the victors. Ruthless, you know what I mean? But intelligent, like doing it for the purpose of, like, trying to ride some sort of line as long as it is allowed, so that they aren't seen as a brutal dictatorship the entire way through. But I don't know. I just think it's too reductionist the way that most people display them. It makes for a very boring and immersion-breaking environment or story if you just display them as, like, being that way. That whole Geneva Conventions don't apply thing is quite a... It's like a trope in sci-fi, I feel like. Right, yeah. As long as you're couching their decisions in what makes sense, as opposed to what will further the idea that they are totalitarian and bad guys. I'm on board, man. It just feels like most of the time nobody gives a fuck about what would make sense for a faction or what would actually help them in a given situation, you know? There's no sense of realism in that sense. Yeah, there could be a justification from external stimulus. For sure. Like, if we don't do this, we're gonna get fucked over. Like, it's a survival thing, and then they just kept up the... Why does that keep happening, man? Actually, where is that installed? This video I am watching is such a fucking tism. Okay. Well, that was easy. Even though I was watching a video that was fucking shaky cam. That was some sick shit, whatever that guy was on. Well, actually, interestingly enough, on the topic of, like, trying to justify the actions of a certain player in a battle or a setting or something, what you'll find often is the more information you give to the players, the more work you have to do to justify the actions taken, you know? Because if you don't give that much information and you just sort of take it for granted in that sense, and you have the characters treat it that way too, the players will. The players won't really need to. It's sort of like the difference between soft science fiction and hard science fiction. If you don't give out all this technical information, or you don't consider it, you don't have the characters consider it, odds are, not very many people will be that invested in, like, even if their brain is telling them this probably wouldn't work this way, because nobody is questioning that, and because the game is, or the medium in general, is not presenting itself as if it ought to be some sort of scientifically literate and just an environment where scientific literacy is important in the first place. Like, you're just going to get to a point where you don't have to worry about that in general, I feel like. So the more you put a premium on that, the more you focus on it, right? The more players are going to need to consider it. Yeah. Amon is definitely a problem. Don't lie to yourself. But at least not this kind of problem. Epic. We're almost done with this, because when we're done with this row here, we are good to go. Just copy and paste it down to the other one. This one's giving me trouble, I feel like. It's mostly because I'm trying to make it look finissimo, and it needs the other layer before it will look like that, so that may have something to do with that. Finissimo, amore mismo, I am by, you feel me. The fuck? Oh, did I already do this? That's funny. Oh, I see what I did. Oops. You, actually. Believe it or not. SMH. I actually do have to do it manually. I thought I was in the clear. Turns out I was not. Not even close. SMH. Fuck. Oh well. Now we really only have one set of rows to do. And the second layer shouldn't be that difficult either. It'll be quick. I feel like the resurrection is I mean, I assume you're not providing a hard science fiction justification for it, right? But even so, I'm still... I feel like there wouldn't be like, oh yeah, we just solved that. Yeah, it's fine. No drawbacks at all. As opposed to being like, like it's a panacea, it seems. As opposed to being you know. Something that maybe comes at a terrible cost, like zombifying your men. How filling of toilet is going? Well, I'm depthing my ice right now, dude. So, pretty good. Soon this will be done, and I'll be able to throw it into the tile set and see how we do. Yeah. I have a feeling mine will be something related to nanites, because you'll have stuff like they'll be stimulating the consciousness, or the dead brain will be stimulated again. But it'll be fairly roughshod, meant only to allow you to continue shooting enemies. Not to just revive because you gotta live to fight another day, you know? It's more like another few seconds in Starcraft anyway. I think he was going to have them target corpses. Oh, no, I guess it is automatic. That's a pretty psychotic ability to have on autocast. There we go. So that's lined up. Time to do... I still have to do some minor, very, very minor adjustments on the masking as well. Just some bits and pieces I didn't get right the first time. Now this is mostly to add a bit of shading to the much brighter snow that creates an ugly contrast. And then we can sort of like grade, like there can be like a bit of a gradation. Up the asset.
Up your asset.
Yeah, I think if it's a micro, like a manual ability or something, it would definitely end up being not very widely used, we'll say. And bio would probably not feel very good as the UED. But with it being on autocast, you might find you're in deep doo-doo for different reasons, where it's too easy. Or it doesn't feel as like the player has as much agency. Yeah. That's true. And also you. To quote a manlet. What did I tell you guys? This is going very quickly. Yeah, I don't know. Medic is like a whole mess of hard code. Yeah, I don't know how you'd have to like change the order every frame or something really hacky, I think, unless you wanted to write your own order. Still not quite 100% sold on the little snow pile in the top middle, but I guess we'll get it in game and see how it looks like. Maybe I'll mess around with it later. Definitely should be good enough for Mapcrap anyway. Bing, bing, bong. I'm glad my menu is not opening. All right, so. Oh yeah, you ED, are you participating in Full Toilet? The one you have an entire month? I don't remember if you already asked for a theme. I don't think so, though. You and DF are holding out on us, man. Okay. So here's the other test of my might. You know what I mean? Epic. Dude, DF is such a man by doing that. Holy fuck. He simplified quite a bit. Actually. Thanks for that error, bro. Appreciate it. I can't get over how blatantly unfinished these tiles are. Like, what the fuck did they do this for? Why? I just can't believe they've done this. Why? Why are they all fucked? Who did this? Who is responsible for this? Imagine manually fixing pixels. As an end user. An end user. Okay. Managed to make some variants. I am a variator. There you go. I think that's how they're normally set up. I guess we'll find out pretty soon. Anyway, the reason I was doing that is so that I could do this. Canvas outpost. Okay. It's not that bad. Surprisingly enough. Just smooth out some of those. This is the Mapcrap Valentine's Day theme song right here. We are looking all right, I think, as far as that goes. Give it a little... You know what I mean? Alright. Of course, I just now realized I have to make these, at least these ramps before I can actually do anything, so... That's quite the epic prank. Just when I think I'm done, I've got to do something else. I am pretty happy about the fact that I was able to improve the variations of the outpost, though. The center tile was always such a nightmare to try to work with. Now being able to do what I want with that a bit more, have a bit more freedom, a bit more variety, that'll be nice. Once I get this stuff set up, though, I think I'm going to try to do some AI work, because I feel like doing AI. Especially since I don't have to Mapcrap it this time. find it incredibly strange that they try to like half bury the ends of these ramps instead of just making some transition area tiles or something. Well, I guess their idea of a transition is just to half bury them, which just seems odd to me. So I'm gonna have to fill in a lot of the details that I just cut out. That's okay. Should be able to simulate most of that with depth anyway. I guess it looks nice enough as far as the aesthetics go, but it seems like it would have been a lot more, or it was a lot more effort to do that than to just make some tiles that actually transition between the two. Because they do that, like, it's not just in the ice tile set that they do the whole berry thing. They do it in desert as well, and probably, yeah, definitely jungle has the same thing going on. It's like it's a repeated pattern. Much less surface area for me to deal with here, though, so there is that at least. Another thing that's odd about this is the color scheme. Like, I can't tell if some of this stuff is meant to be foliage or if it's meant to just be the fact that there's, like, green metal for some reason. I think it's the latter. Right? Because they use the green highlights all around the asset, but then they also have bits of grass here, so, like, I don't know which one is accurate depending on the position. The fuck? There we go. I was just offset by one extra pixel without realizing it, or one extra group. Embrace the void. Whoa. I don't know about that one, man. Oops. Typing in ripcord instead of plus 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 in here. Immediately pranked. It's too bad these didn't act like traps in installation. These giant fucking laser turrets. Would have actually made the tile set a little bit more interesting. Oops. Pranked. You fucker. Alright. Epic. Time for some depth, bro. Windows yelling at me about updates again. I thought we were past that. Unfortunately not. Oh yeah, I forgot. When my brother was fighting Boko, he he first saw Boko, he's like, "What is this ET looking guy?" He was very, very confused. I was like, "That's Boko, dude." And then he thought it said Anime Fury, and he had to look at it a second time. And he said, "Oh, that's even worse." It's pretty epic. Screen that you sent me today? Did you send one? Oh yeah, opcode stuff. I saw that you have opcode 1, Oh yeah, you were debugging all this stuff. I was on my phone, so I couldn't really read it, so I didn't look at it for very long. What do you mean, condition? Oh, like, what condition is it in? I still have to do AI for Crack, Torpedos, and the Void. And then I have to do triggers for the transmissions, and then it's ready to go. But I can't, obviously I'm working on my Mapcrap submission right now. This stuff that I'm editing right now will also be used. The stacked compound or stacked outpost will be used in that map as well. So this is still, in some ways, working on Todborne's tileset. Tileset stuff that I will use for Todborne. But I also am finding it difficult to find motivation to work on it while there's a crash and a freeze. The freeze I can try to debug later on for sure. That won't actually be that difficult, presumably. Like it might be time consuming, but I should be able to figure it out. But that crash is super puzzling, and until I get somewhere with it. My brother can't play the updated version of map 1, and I can't release it, right? So, sort of taking a break for now, so I can work on some other stuff. And hopefully, some idea will hit me. Yeah, so this is what Icor's been working on lately, where he's got a custom grafting program in the works. Right now, what we are dealing with is mostly related to the conditions, like DAT requirements for upgrades, and so he's got his own thing in here. I think these bottom two lines aren't related, but these ones are like showing it's a comparison and blah blah blah, you know, basically printing out what the plugin is reading to make sure that it's all correct. The first map is ready to go for Todborne, but I'm not going to release it until we fix the crash, right? So I was hoping to get it out publicly by the 31st, but that didn't pan out, so it's alright. There's time for that. Oh yeah, can't forget this little tiny area over here. So what I'm going to do is just do the first half, right? And then copy and paste it over to the other side. See how that works out. Yeah. Well, you said it was something related to... You said it was probably related to cloaking Cullen, and you said you were going to give me some debug thing that would print something out. But I figure you probably haven't worked on that for a while. Just because you're taking a break, and... Makes perfect sense, trust me. I'm doing the same thing. You said it was something related to Cullen swapping classes. The one time I tested without swapping any classes, instead of crashing, I got a freeze from AI, so I haven't been able to test if the crash still occurs without changing any classes. Yeah, there is. It looks pretty fucked up. You've added debug messages? You didn't send me a file, I don't think, unless I missed it. Yeah, you never sent me it, so. Unless you were testing it yourself, I don't know. For installation, that might be interesting. Like, I definitely think you could make it work with intelligent level design. I don't know how, like, easy it would be in theory, but... So yeah, I think it could definitely work. But you would need to make sure that you're not feature creeping it too hard, as usual. I don't think it's necessary for sure to like have a functioning mission, and even like a functioning installation mission, you can definitely get away with not having anything crazy. Like micro mission, obviously, need a lot of stuff if you're gonna make it actually good, but basically need a completely different game at that point. But just to make a map where one of the locales is in installation should be fine. So I guess we need the pathfinding rewrite, but mechanically that's not like a giant departure, right? The fuck? Bit of a manual correction on the stairs here. I'm not going to go whole hog and like really establish a concrete border, but it'll be a little bit more of a consistent through line. Well, they would be. I would assume that they'd be treated more like Niduses or something. Though there'd be a much slower travel time in theory. Okay. Thanks. Okay. So I think we're good to go. I will first use the bathroom, and then when I return, I will throw these in the tile set, and we'll see what happens. BRB. Hi. You. Lord Call. Oh, you know what I should do actually is I should be grabbing the tile set from Todborne. So, that's the one that has most of the, or all the good stuff, all the good changes. Oh, pop on down here and give it a little plus button. There we go. I got a little spooked there. It's like, what the fuck is going on with the some of this stuff? Alright, so this is where I have to open up a second copy. And find the outpost ramps in here and copy my corrected stuff down. Got to make sure that they are consistent. This is probably the most exciting stuff you will see all day. A man and his tile set. I don't think that's right. Just make them buildable. Or walkable, rather. It's all coming back to me now. Alright, cool. So now I can just throw that into the, well, I can grab the flags for that, right? And then apply those to the other ramp. And, well, the other cliff doodads in general. Get something going. Alright. No, I haven't checked these yet. I'm just plugging these in right now. So now I get to go up here, find the... Oh wait, it's these, yeah. This is pretty epic, dude. I actually dig this beat they got going on here. Once I finish tweaking this tile set, I'll compile these and see what we get. Hopefully it won't take me too long. I wish there was a more efficient system for this, man. What a disaster. Like, you can tell nobody who was involved in the creation of this tool bothered to try to use it at any point. I think actually some of the modernizations that PQ ended up adding were because he tried to use it. So at least he understands the mechanism, but still feels pretty bad. Carpal tunnel. So this is a little bit different, right? I think that does it. These... I don't think these have anything. No. Just... Nice. So that's done. Now I'll just grab these tiles. And then I'll have to fix height. Sold mum for RP. What a name. I'm a modder. Aspiring game designer. So if you ask me that same question in like 5 years, probably. That's the goal. Right now, I'm just working with Brood War. I think it's unlikely I don't achieve it, based on my track record. But I'm less concerned about the label and more concerned about actually producing something of quality. So whether or not I am considered one or I consider myself one, I give much more of a shit about whether I made something I can respect. So Them's the breaks. This is quite a happy accident, that's for sure. Really says a lot about the industry that they were never able to one-up it. If only I had actual tools. What industry did you end up settling for? I hear that a lot, though. I hear, you know, people just don't have the opportunities and don't make them themselves or whatever. I mean, I have no personal illusions that it's going to be anything other than a very long while before I'm able to, quote-unquote, make it. Like, financially, at least. But it's definitely hard to be disciplined and go after, like you said, the dream. If you also have to balance out, like, work that you're not really that interested in. Especially if it's a full-time thing. Thankfully, I can skate by on part-time for now. But if I had to do full-time, it would definitely be a hit to my productivity. Oh, I see. So still designing software, just not the interactive kind. Well, I guess technically that kind of software is interactive, but you get my idea there. Oh, I flubbed that. Forgot to correct that. Looks like it's okay. Have to fix that below momentarily. Pretty much, Iquare, yeah. It's one of the reasons why I want to see about tapping into Unreal, even though it seems like it's not really well designed for a real-time strategy game. It should be possible to make some tech demos or something, at least. Some proofs of concept. Dude, whoever said, hey, developer guy, can you you mind developing me some better tools, man? Holy shit. That's one thing I might end up learning C++ for, just so I can start making my own tool set. This is asinine. The amount of bugs there are in these things. Oh, pranked. Forgot to fix that too. That's why you double check before you start extracting flags to copy and paste. I must have really fallen asleep like 10 minutes ago when I was doing this. I don't know what happened there. What? Yes. Great. Well, hopefully it fucking saved my progress. Alright. Looks like we're fine. That's scary. Can't just do that to a man. Alright, let me fix the junk down here. There we go. Bing, bang, bong. Well, Battlecry 3 is like too mired in its RPG elements. They definitely muddy the waters too much for what is reasonable. And so, I think it's safe to say the game would benefit a lot from all of the randomness being cut out and simplification of the armor system, as well as the heroes being overhauled in some way. I don't know what way specifically you would do them, but something to improve the way that they behave. Oops. Forgot that these were not quite the same here. Well, we are indeed approaching the final bit of stuff here. The final row. Now we can throw this in there. See what happens. I might not have that much time to get any work done on AI. I might have to just finish up my level design and then call it for the day. This took longer than expected, that's for sure. Not just this process, but masking everything out and all that. But that's okay, because if this works out, we've got assets for 2 separate projects, so. Pretty nice. Anyway, as far as directly comparing those games is concerned, I would say they're pretty far below par in general. Probably the biggest thing, like the biggest barrier of entry, is the fact that things are so like obfuscated in that game. So much of the mechanics are behind curtains that you as a player can't hope to actually pull back unless you go hunting for a wiki or something. And even then it's like you actually have to study fucking math. Like obviously there's going to be some math in every game, but the idea that you would have to do that to understand basic shit like how much damage something is going to deal. You have to study special mathematical formula for this game that's unique to this game. A little excessive. Definitely could have done without that. So, minimizing that would have helped them out a lot, but they elected not to. What's up, DF? Any thoughts on the infinite replayability of multiplayer games, microtransactions affecting the viability of single-player games? Well, microtransactions are just the latest sort of... They're probably not even the latest at this point, I would say. There's probably something more recent that is indicative of this. But it's basically just like developer greed, or publisher greed, perhaps. Executive greed in the industry, mixing with bloat from hiring people. Like it's like the brain drain, I think they call it, where there's like people who don't actually justify their position in the company manufacturing work for themselves to do, and so that they can still be paid, as opposed to them actually being needed by the company and serving some sort of purpose. So this happens all over the place, and so that is like a big weight on these companies. And then they offset that by saying, well, we also want to turn a huge profit, and investors behind the scenes are saying, like they're either the investors or the executives or both are under the assumption that if they don't have a growth period every single year, then it's a failure. And if the growth is too small, it's also a failure, even though any growth is positive. And you can't grow forever because there's not infinite number of consumers, so obviously not an infinite number of growth opportunities. So there's a lot of like basically people just chasing money forever. And so microtransactions are a manifestation of that behavior, just like pre-orders and just like pre-order exclusives and all this other stuff. So I think that's a big deal in general with microtransactions, whether or not they affect the viability of multiplayer games. I mean, versus single player games, like one of them is more viable than the other. Certainly multiplayer games, anything that you don't have to script out. Like a linear experience in a single player story involves you playing a campaign, you walk into an area, something happens. Like very rarely is it emergent, right? That's why like we saw a huge number of open world games come out, because you didn't have to do as much pre-scripting for the environments. And so that was actually cheaper on development because it took less time to develop. They obviously gave less of a shit because those games are filled with bugs and they were never tested. At least the testers never got to communicate their results, their feedback to the developers, because if you know how that works as well behind the scenes, legal teams decide what they will or will not patch based on like what they can project out as like, can we fix this before release comfortably? No? Okay, we'll ignore it. Even if it's really bad, even if it's like a huge issue, like it's performance based or something. Like they basically just look at what you've got and they say like, maybe they can do that in time. Okay, throw that over there. I don't think they can fix this in time, though, and get it out. And so they don't push back developer dates, like release dates, obviously. And so tester feedback gets like screened before it gets passed on. So there's just no direct communication in most big name companies anyway, like Ubisoft and Blizzard and all these other places. So like that's a big deal that in general plagues the industry. And that's also based on the idea that they need to release at a certain time because they're trying to make money, as opposed to trying to make the best product that they can make and hoping that word of mouth carries it over. You know, they spend all their money on marketing and stuff. So it doesn't take that much effort to produce microtransactions. It doesn't take that much effort compared to a scripted sequence of events like something like the original Halo games. If you look at the amount of time you'd need to make an equivalent experience now versus the amount of time you'd need to make an Assassin's Creed game. So like open world games saw an increase. And multiplayer games also don't generally have the same amount of pre-scripted elements to them. You have to worry about like netcode more, and you have to make sure that you're handling like multiplayer balancing. So you have to probably like keep a balance team on payroll for a while. But generally speaking, like you don't really need as much staff. You don't really need that much development compared to an experience that is meant to be single player. So part of it is they think that they can make every game an esport, or they can make every game some element of that, and that can be profitable for them. So of course you're going to see more action in that market, especially in the mobile market, but also in general. You're going to see a huge amount of influx in, or we've already seen this in the industry, but you're going to see more people prioritizing that over single player experiences because people have less passion to create. Like that passion is probably beaten out of them as soon as they run in as a junior developer in one of these big companies, and they're just there to make money. Like they're serving a corporate interest as opposed to a personal interest of trying to make something that's really good. And that's one of the reasons why I'll never work in the industry. Is one of the many reasons I'll never work in the industry. It's because I don't want to have passion beaten out of me, and I would prefer to just release something when it's actually done, as opposed to releasing it when my investors tell me I have to, or my corporate boss tells me I have to. So it's definitely not a fair industry in general. Like there's a lot of unfair elements about it. The developers get pilloried for shit that they probably didn't have any control over. But at the end of the day, they had some control. They could have just walked out and gone indie. And that's not very profitable for them, so they don't ever choose to do that. And maybe they literally can't anyway because they're barely being paid enough to afford housing in LA as it is or whatever. Like that, you hear horror stories of all the Blizzard employees that have to sleep in their houses because they can't, or in the studios rather, because they can't afford rent. So they just sleep inside the fucking offices. It's psychotic. Like I'm laughing because it's so fucking absurd. So yeah. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of thoughts. Some of them not exactly directly tethered to your question, but hopefully gave you enough food for thought to make it a worthwhile answer. Now, let me try to put this mod together. Really. Let's grab my framework. Throw that in here. Oh, wait. Float would be... Yeah, all those that you listed, but also just like people who are hired in as developers.
Is that a fucking crow? Ah!
Oh, thanks. Appreciate it. Basically, you have the situation where it can also manifest on the development team. So there's people out there who are not competent enough and can't learn to be competent enough to actually warrant a position in a quote-unquote AAA development studio. And I use those quote-unquotes because the products that they release are not any form of AAA quality. Like, we say AAA almost like facetiously, because that's what they call themselves. That's another piece of marketing, but it actually doesn't mean anything anymore, anyway. Questionable if it ever did, but certainly not anymore. And so what you'll end up seeing a lot of the time is... developers, junior developers, senior developers sometimes, especially people in positions that get grandfathered in, like I would say Chris Metzen of Blizzard fame, like they could automate most of the work he does. This sounds like I'm telling you like a sarcastic joke or something. Most of the stuff that he comes up with as far as story concepts, you could just throw fucking darts at a dartboard and wherever the dart lands is what you end up doing. Like, especially for naming of entities in the story, like, Void Wanderer, fell down the stairs, Crypt Dweller, like he's so fucking, like, it's so dumb what he ended up doing at the end of his career and just throughout it that like you could actually automate him with a JavaScript bot, and I actually have automated him with a JavaScript bot. So like they realize that they don't actually need this guy, so eventually they let him go and they give him like a nice, pretty severance package. But he drained a lot of resources from that company while he was in their roster. And that was a situation where like that's probably true of all of them, like Brevik and all of the senior executives. They didn't really justify their position. They just had history with the company, so they were grandfathered in. So you see this on every echelon of the company's hierarchy. The highest echelon is people who are grandfathered in from like back when there was Wild West, and there's no point in them now. I thought somebody was at the door. I guess not. So, like, they don't actually justify their position. They never necessarily did, but at least it made sense when everybody was, like, just a scrap cobble team thrown together to try to make something, and that was more of, like, the passion project type days. But now they certainly don't justify their position in a corporate structure. Like, people look up to them for leadership, but not because they earned it, and so there's not really any justification for them being there. So that's a big source of bloat, is, like, executives from earlier days in gaming industry's lifespan or history that have ascended the ranks now and been appointed to positions, but not based on competence, just based on the fact that they've been there for that long, that they've justified their, like, they have history with the company, so that's how they justify their position, as opposed to doing it through their work. I mean, he had impact, but it wasn't good impact, and what he was doing could be automated. Like, that's what I mean, is like, the influence that he had was not a positive one. Metzen is like one of those people that's like a singularity of incompetence, where he has presence in the company and he has control over the company, but everything that he does reduces the quality of the work that is there. I mean, this is all sort of speculation based on what I know the guy likes based on some interviews. But like, this is the same guy that is like perpetually boozed out of his mind, even on BlizzCon Q&As. Some guy asks him about a plot hole in one of his games, and he just goes, "I forgot about that. You should forget about it too." Like, that's his fucking response. So the guy's like, what the fuck? Like, this is a real man, like a real executive of the company. And so he's out. Bye. And so, like, it's just, people don't get, I think, how they treat in their minds. They conceive of these individuals as doing a lot more than they actually do, I think. And so if you really knew some of the behind the scenes shit, where like, the claim to fame Metzen had during the development of Warcraft 3 is he would literally walk around the offices while people are working just shouting, "I am the war chief," because he voice acted Thrall. Like, just, it's like, what a man. Cool guy, though. Epic man. What the fuck did I just do? There we go. Oh yeah, I've got to rename this. So yeah, there's bloat in all sorts of capacities, is what I'm getting at. Yeah, I mean, Battlecry is at least a game where there's a significant amount of, like, it's a fast-paced title, so it's not Warcraft 3. That's for sure. So I'll give you, like, another example here. Like, obviously, I just mentioned Warcraft 3. The fiasco that is going on right now with that game's remaster coming out is like, a lot of people are claiming that it's like, oh, Activision Blizzard, like, they're at it again. This is their fault. Like, if only we had old Blizzard back. They don't realize that, like, the people responsible for Activision Blizzard's like, for one, they're separate entities. They have the same corporate structure at the end of the day, as supposedly, but they are actually separate. Like, they don't. It's not like they're the same company anymore. It's not like you can't blame Activision for something Blizzard did, because they actually have, like, their own employees and their own setup and all that stuff. So people try to, like, shift the blame off of the company that they like so that they can blame the company that they don't like. And that's been, like, a narrative that's been spun for quite a while now. So it's just, it's very entertaining to me as somebody who's, like, hasn't been attached to the brand of Blizzard for a long time, to see people who are, like, they're still, like, in shock and awe about this situation. It's like, I don't know what they were expecting. Like, that's a key example of bloat, though, is like these remasters. They're only there to get money. Like, they're only there as a cash grab. And it's very obvious now for everybody, it seems, but it's maybe you missed the fiasco specifically, but it's pretty good, man. It's pretty epic. I'll put it to you that way. Yeah, I can't take credit for the singularity of incompetence line, though. That was Mesk. All right, so we got some new tiles in here for centerpiece tiles. I probably should have made some more plain variants. I got tired of seeing the same old stuff over and over again, so made a couple of variants. That's looking much better, I think. Bing bong. And UED Commander, you are the war chief. Hope you didn't make any plans. You gotta safeguard the horde, dude. We're all counting on you. Safeguard the U? Okay. I can get behind that. Yeah, shading definitely needs some work in this, but it's Mapcrap. So yeah, bloat. Big problem. I mean, don't get me wrong, microtransactions are also a big problem. But there's this sensation, or this notion, that if you don't have microtransactions in your game, then you won't make any money. And that is so fucking just blatantly false. There's so many games that turn a profit based on sales figures alone before the microtransactions even get counted. And if they don't turn a profit for some reason, the blame should probably be turned on the people who are managing the budget of the game and who somehow managed to not, like, to mismanage that budget, right? Like, if you mismanage your budget, of course you're not going to have as much money or as much of a return at the end of the day when your sales figures go out. And that shouldn't be come as a surprise to anybody. It's not like this is some grand conspiracy, right? It's... I say simple economics as if I know what I'm talking about when it comes to economics, but it is actually fairly basic stuff. It's like, if you're not closely monitoring your team and making sure that they're doing their job and that there is no brain drain active in your company, then that stuff can get out of control. And that's what I think you see happening in Blizzard land, as well as all the other companies. And so the moral of the story is that you're not meant to make a profit if you're mismanaged. But these companies want to mismanage, or they don't want to put in the effort to actually do any management. And yet, despite that, they also want to turn a profit, right? Because management is difficult. Like, it's not easy. So... I may have laid this tile set out in a rather dumb way. I am realizing this now. Yeah, for sure there was too much of an overlap between the races in that game. I feel like they could have had a much more interesting title on their hands if they had been more unique. But I feel like that was also just something that happened a lot in the old days of RTS games. You would see game devs do crazy ass stuff, like try to design situations where you would have like 30 races or something, and it didn't seem like there was much of a consideration for whether or not those races were well balanced or were fully realized. Like, they're just throwing them in there. This is my complaint with Age of Empires and some other titles. I feel like there's too many games that they focus on quality, or they don't focus on quality, they focus on quantity over quality. I can't speak the English language, I'm sorry, guys. I tried. My cogency is no longer present. Microtransactions are annoying, yes. They sure are. Trying to find the right one here. There it is. Oops. Now that's what I call snow. Hi, by the way. You, by the way. I think he has like 6 sub-factions or something. I lost track. It's probably not that many, but I have to elaborate or exaggerate a little bit. Otherwise, there's no humor. All right. At some point, I just have to do. What's the term? I just have to do some grass into snow blend. That'll be great. Can't wait to do that. You, actually. What's up, Luciferians? Luciferians? Alright, we did it. Check out my base area, dude. Yeah, that was what I was just saying. I gotta make some blend with that. That's why these are here. Right now they're just gonna mark out base layouts or like optimal places for construction, but like town hall stuff. What does that even mean? Crow pilling is like waking up and realizing that the industry is shit, and you've got to do whatever you can to correct your little corner of the world in the face of such terrible everything. I think so too, but that's going to require your editor to handle that. Oh yeah, you just said today you were thinking about the future of Mapcrap. Yeah. Right. No, I think so too. Don't say that. I don't get why does everybody really not everybody. It's just you and UED Commander. I don't get any fucking idea that yeah, I'm going to have some naval units. It's a fucking sci-fi RTS. Not only do naval units not fit, not only is there not water in most maps, or every map, I should say. Like, you have to make so many concessions with regards to level design and also tech tree design if you're going to include naval units. Unless they're just a gimmick, like just like a side unit or something. Like 3 of them in the entire game, in which case why even have them? So I'm not convinced by anybody's ideas to implement naval units. They never make any sense.
Get out my face.
Yeah, space ships.
That just don't make no sense.
There's a couple others I need to do at some point. Don't quite remember where they are. This is a psychotic mix and I like it. This one's a bit more demanding, it seems. I mean, if you're just talking about implementing it because you can, okay, like, I understand what you're saying. I just mean, I don't understand why, like, from a gameplay standpoint, there's no reason to. IMO. IMO, I suppose. Trying to see if there's any others that got pranked. Doesn't look like it. Just those two. Sorry if I keep smashing my microphone. Not intentional. Not yet, anyway. Yeah, sure can create a Loch Ness monster. Yes. There's an idea. Listen. You actually. What? Oh yeah, I've got to merge. I probably have some space somewhere here that I can add to. I don't know where it might be, but probably closer to here. Yeah. Oh yeah, another thing I have to do is make all of those, what's it called? I have to make all of those asphalts things unbuildable, or whatever the ones they are. Not asphalt, but you know what I mean. Reasonable. All right. Imagine AI just suddenly start building all over these things. Like, what the fuck? Now, if only I could just select every tile in here. And do that once, instead of however many times I just had to do it. What was my argument against counter system in RTS? Well, it takes the decision-making and agency away from the player. You're basically making the decision for them when you design a tech tree that works that way. So, for example, the roach in Starcraft 2 is like the example that we gave on the podcast a while ago. And what? Oh, I renamed it. But we gave that example on the podcast because it's easy to point out. If you don't build a roach, if you don't build roaches in this context, you're fucked. And that context is not niche, it's most things. And anytime you have to build a specific unit, and it's not because like you went down a specific build order and that's the only unit you have available, it's because that's the only unit that can actually answer this to this thing, or that's the only unit that you can use if you actually want to win. Like that's already fucked. Like, it's already a very dumb situation to be in as a player. But that's like the primary thing, is that it takes away agency of both a player that has access to the unit and the player that is fighting against it. But if you want a different kind of argument, you can just simply go back to the idea that it's just boring. It's so boring to experience something in that context. That's funny. I fucked that one up. But alright, we'll leave that there for now. That's pretty good bit. I like that one. Yeah, Hercs are psychotic because they literally just hard counter Banelings. It's like one unit. Okay, great. Facepalm. Face desk. As far as what I would do, though, for counters, I would just make it so that, like, it's much more complicated than just saying this beats that, which is what everybody wants to say. They just want to be like, oh yeah, if you build this, you win, and like, it's easy to design that way, but it's not like going to be a recipe for a good game or a fun game that actually tests players' abilities. That's one of the reasons why I want to go even more deeper than just designing tech trees that have a lot of variance, a lot of opportunity. Because I want to make maps that are like that too. I want to make maps that require players to adapt. And that's where I have the idea of like making maps that are not symmetrical. So that depending on your spawn, might favor a different race or a different matchup in a different manner. I think that's way more exciting and way more interesting, and that tests the kind of skill that I want to test, which is adaptation and, in a genuine way, where you're showing off your skill at the game and not your skill at learning whatever stupid broken stuff just got added to the game every month like StarCraft 2. So that's like a definitive element of it to me. It's like, how can I design something where really skilled players can show off their skill, express their skill, right? Without having to whatever the term is, like they shouldn't have to learn something new every single month or whatever with the regards to balance, like core mechanics of a game or something. But if every now and then they have to, because a season change has happened and you're no longer playing with this map pool, that's different. And I like that better anyway. Well, a carrier doesn't hard counter siege tanks because you're misconstruing the idea of a hard counter as something that always wins against something in every situation. A hard counter is designed to always win against something else in every situation. Like, the Roach is designed to lose to the Marauder, and the Marauder is designed to beat the Roach. The Immortal is designed to beat the Roach. It's like a blinders on, no fucking scope way of actually designing an RTS's tech tree. You're basically designing mechanics and building the entire race around like this unit counters that unit, or this class of unit, as opposed to it just being this is a unit and this is what it does. Now, I don't know the design document or the methodology behind why the carrier was designed the way it was, but I have a feeling it wasn't a way to counter siege tanks, right? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Odds are they probably didn't design the carrier expressly for the purpose of countering siege tanks. Whereas they designed the Roach, and the Marauder, and the Immortal, and the Stalker, and all these other units with express purpose of countering other units or other compositions. As opposed to just being units that serve a combat role more broadly speaking. They were very specific as to why they produced certain units. So, that's where it seems like it's nebulous because it requires you to understand intent, but it isn't nebulous because when it's something like that, it's super apparent what is actually going on behind the scenes. You know what I mean? Like, it's super transparent that that's what Blizzard wanted. Because like you can reverse engineer that motivation just by looking at the end product that they made. Wait. Oh yeah. So this is well, then you haven't been paying attention to how the game evolved since beta. That's what I would argue anyway. It is much less useful than other stuff. Like, its kit was tooled specifically to destroy the Roach and to destroy the Stalker. While the Immortal was specifically designed to destroy Marauders, Roaches, Siege Tanks, and die to Marines. Like these are, it's not like the difference between it is like if I'm designing a unit and in my head I'm thinking this will be good against this type of strategy or this type of composition, but only under these circumstances or if the player positions them in this way. Like that's already so many factors of consciousness and actual thought of like the real game and not some imaginary test map where you're doing some unit testing. That's a much different experience of development, a much more robust perspective than what Blizzard did with StarCraft 2, where they said this unit will be good against that unit and weak against this unit. That's literally what they were like. That was their design philosophy and their process. Well, that doesn't really say much. Considering you didn't even think the Roach was a hard counter until like a couple months ago or whatever, it doesn't really tell me much, man. I have to throw some more expansions around. Take it easy, Connor. I didn't say they were hard counters to... What does that even mean? That's like not even remotely related. It's like if I asked you... I can't even come up with an explanation for how much of a non sequitur that is. Yeah, they're outscaled, but they're designed as an early action unit. So, I don't know what pertinence that has exactly. Sounds like it would have been a more interesting unit. For the Vorviling, it was a little weird. I think I did some psycho stuff where I was like... In general, this is how I come up with unit names for Zerg. I go look up some crazy-ass stuff for from mythology, and I just like butcher the name a few times until it sounds sufficiently alien. But usually the mythology has something to do with what the original unit, like what the unit ID is, so that if in fact anybody does recognize some element of it, they'll recognize the the intended sort of thematic there, in theory anyway. Well, banelings aren't used, so they're only used to counter other bio. They are a hard counter, but it's not. They're not a pernicious problem in the game. Not even close to being as much of a issue as. As something like the Roach. They're not nearly as destructive either to the game state. They aren't used. I mean, maybe in Legacy of the Void they are used now, but they weren't used when I played. He's responding to something I said. Anyway, even if they were used, or are used now, rather, like I said, they're not nearly as destructive to the game state as the rest of the roster. Like the trifecta of Tism, which, as Mesk explained, is the Marauder, Immortal, Roach, is the biggest issue with the game. That really informed everything that was to come later on. Like the Hardened Shield rework or whatever. I don't even know if that's still in Legacy of the Void, but that was a disaster. And the entire reason they felt like they needed to do that was because they had killed all exploration of the tech tree. The Marauder is in the same exact boat, but I don't know if they bothered with changing it in any capacity since release. Yeah, you'll see Infested Terrans more often. Though eventually I'll just replace them with an actual infested faction. Or perhaps not replace them, but something of that nature. Yeah, I didn't play in past Heart of the Swarm. I played a little bit of Melee and Heart of the Swarm, but they weren't used when I played. But everything in Wings of Liberty was a mess. Like, the thing is, it's the ancestry of this game, as its patches came out and as its expansions came out, they felt this need to continuously produce new content and have new units added to the multiplayer, and that just ended up making it even more fucking messy than it was before. Like, think about the units that they added into the game, and then remember that the units that they scrapped, like the Herc and the Warhound, and the fucking whatever that mine was that destroyed things, the shrapnel mine of some kind. That like all those things are things that they cut because they were that bad in their eyes. Meanwhile, they added the fucking Cyclops to the game and reworked it 30 times. Like, bye. Like, they're adding all these units, right? The Disruptor was such a fucking failure at launch because all it does is force you to throw out indicators. It's like the most boring call and response bullshit you could possibly imagine throwing into an RTS. And so conceptually, none of these units are fun to use, but you have to use them because of the way that they're overtuned. Yeah, pretty much. Just spawn a legion of 1 HP infested Terrans. For the sake of cutscene or something. That would be pretty psychotic. Well, disruptors were used pretty heavily when I played Heart of the Swarm, and they were used in pro play a lot up until, I guess, Legacy of the Void. Last pro match I watched was probably early Legacy of the Void. They were used all over the place. But it wasn't because people wanted to use them. It was because they had to. Like, you don't feel good about using a disruptor. You feel like shit. Because even if you land the shot, there's no, like, skill involved. If you miss the shot, obviously that doesn't feel good. So there's no value to doing it, you know? The things with the AoE indicators were Legacy of the Void? I swear they were Heart of the Swarm. Funny that they never showed up in the campaign anyway, though. I just realized, though. I was trying to think, like, wait, when did I fight them in the campaign? And then I remembered there weren't any. Disaster. Well, they were used in pro matches, is what I'm saying, regardless of when they came out. They were a big fucking draw. But the decision wasn't made by the players. I'll put it to you that way. think I've done all of the expansions over here. No, there's no skill involved in fucking landing indicators. Not the right kind of skill. It's the button mashing fucking... It's the same thing as the Liberator. Which I think was also Legacy of the Void. So yeah, let's just throw this thing in here that creates a giant indicator and deals 1 billion damage. This is so dumb. The Liberator is a similar hard counter stylized unit. It's not actually a hard counter per se, as much as it's a hard counter to everything on the fucking ground. But it's not as much of a hard counter as something else, but it's very much like, we're going to make this unit only able to attack units and not buildings. And have this weird-ass gimmick associated with it. It's a similar fridge logic in RTS design form. Adept. You'll notice that all of these units have psychotic abilities instead of just being like associated with behaviors or positional gameplay or just being units that have different stats. Everything's gotta be flashy and wow. I have 69 different things that they've got to use. I have not done anything for the Twilight tile set yet. I'll probably work on that over the next couple of days to try to get you the Basilica. Oh, let me compile these. I just realized I have not done that yet. I like all the times where they mentioned reworking the Infestor and it was still just as problematic as before. I don't know what the fuck they've done recently, but the Infestor has been a unit that they've fucked around with since release and they've never been able to make it good. Of course they did. Starcraft 2 is such a lost cause. There's not even really any value in dissecting it, I don't think. Like, there's a little bit of value in trying to educate people like you who still think that there's something to learn from it beyond lessons of what not to do. But at the end of the day, like, that's your fucking responsibility, man. I don't want to talk about this stupid fucking terrible title. Oh, look, we're out of music. Let me find something. I've done quite a lot of it doesn't even infest anything, yeah. I've done so much, like, I've made so much content that demonstrates all of the problems with the game, and at this point it's like, not even a point to going through it. Alright, so I think I was supposed to add this to Todborne, right? Oh, I think I have this thing muted. Holy shit! Psychosis. Yeah. Escalate, Cyprian!
All set up over here. Hell yeah. So what?
So what am I supposed to do for debugging this? No, there's no infestation. Oh. Well, we got the fucking crash very quickly this time. Epic. Well, Iquare, what do I do? I'm so disappointed that not one person reacted literal shit to my fucking Mapcrap. What do you mean switch classes? It's fucking crashed already. I didn't even get a chance to. Oh. I think you forgot to update your AI.rs file. That's great. Gotta do that again now. Can you re-enable your thing that doesn't cause the void to crash when they try to build something, please? I've turned it back on several times now. I don't even remember which A's thing I was using for this. I have to go find something that actually has it in there. I don't think this one has it in. Well, I don't think you ever added it back to the plugin. So, like after you had to derust everything, if you remember, there was like a psychotic number of things that had to be fixed because you started to update your compiler in the middle of development. I feel like I've tested my ideas quite a bit in this particular context. I don't think there's any merit to, like, I may seem incorrigible and unmovable in some of these ideas, but that's for good fucking reason. And nothing you have said has even remotely come close to challenging them. So until you can actually defeat these arguments that I've laid out in my videos, especially the podcasts and the playthroughs with Mesk, where we actually talk about this stuff in more detail, there's not really much value in me talking about them. So it's not so much me wanting to change the topic as much as it is there's literally no value in doing this. IMO. Oh, the spinning is back. Everything about it is bad, but that is not really what I'm talking about. The game is bad on a foundational level and cannot be improved. You'd have to redo the whole thing if you really wanted to improve it and make it worthwhile. And so there's nothing to learn from it, from engaging in conversations about it. Pretty good. The iScript could probably be adjusted somewhat. Yeah, I guess so far so good in terms of crashing. Well, maybe it is, but there's no value in going and checking it for real, so... Like, why would I go and see if it's any different now? There's no value in doing that. And we all know there's no value in doing that. So maybe the specific examples are outdated. I can understand if you feel that way because you've played the game more recently than I have, and I can't contest you on those points. But there's no value in continuing to discuss the latest examples, because for one, I don't know them anyway, and for another, the game's quality is self-evidently not worth discussing. Well, I guess I'll just keep playing for a bit while I wait for the crash to occur again. If only I had my gap closer. Epic wireframe. Pretty good placement. No complaints. Definitely where I told them to place it. Yeah, bear blowers don't show up until map 2. Yeah, as far as, like, so far there's no crash, but I'm not quite sure what else could be at fault here. It's a unit for the cops. Need to kill some more void units that have gas requirements associated with them. Maybe there should be like a button that heals you instantaneously if you give them enough donuts or something. Eat donuts and it heals you for 50 life for every 100 donuts. I wouldn't have any features, so... And my brother would not have enjoyed the actual game, so... I don't think it would have been a better product, per se. We're starting to hit the sprite limit now, which is pretty epic. Now I outrange their defenses. It's over. What do you mean? Liberators have no opportunity cost. So that would be what's wrong with them. Again, if you can't figure this stuff out on your own, I really have no desire to, like, regardless of whether or not you can fix this stuff on your own, I have no real desire to make educational content about it or spend mental brain power, as opposed to physical brain power, thinking about it and trying to articulate points in a way that is not disingenuous or, you know, half-baked. I would really just... I would encourage you to consider what could be wrong with them by yourself and figure out what conclusions you can draw and how you would improve them. That'll improve your ability to reason anyway, regardless of needing to hear a counter-argument or something. Almost an infinite volley of donuts, by the way. By the way, DF, we definitely need a donut projectile at some point. Would be epic. By the way, the reason why they're not rebuilding as often as they ought to be is because under attack is still broken. So that's epic. Hey, that was supposed to void. Oh. Oh. Oh no. My worst nightmare. Alright, cool. Oh. Save me, me. Oh, see you later, me. I cannot believe you don't know what an opportunity cost is, man. What's it sound like? The cost of taking the opportunity. When you can just pack up and leave whenever you want with no issues, and there's no consequence to being caught out of position. That would be an opportunity, a lack of opportunity cost. Oh, my sprite limit. Super Mongos. Wonder if I could void all these Mongos by accident. Hi. Okay, bye. I will not recall. I am a man. I'm gonna try to avoid this guy. I could avoid my allies' workers. Wow, it only voided one of them. SMH. Don't mind me. Just out here hanging. Oh! Bye. Why are my allies not mining any fucking coffee, dude? I need some coffee, man. This is where it's actually super destructive for them to not be mining gas. They're not mining gas from hardly anywhere. And I need it for my fucking upgrades. So now I'm gonna go bait out more void units. Yeah, that's true. But I think that they would just run away anyway. Eventually. Oh, there's a crash. I'm not sure if it's the same one, though. Oops. Fuck. Why does that happen? God damn it. Well, whatever. That seems like it's probably the right one, though. Yeah, it's a draw image detected crash. Well, follow wouldn't go close enough. Maybe. I like the fact that it's predictable behavior that you can, like, coax them into enemy units and then kill them, though. Alright, well, that does it for me anyway. I gotta get ready to go to work. Unfortunately, we do not have any more information about Crash. We just know it's not that. So back to the drawing board. I guess to debug it, I'll probably need to just like start removing assets. But that's going to be such an annoying aspect of the whole thing. But we got some good progress on my full toilet submission. And yeah, I'm happy about that. So. I'm glad that nobody reacted literal shit to me. That was great. Thank you guys for being nice. And thanks for hanging out today. I'll be back tomorrow morning for another one of these. Probably still working on my full toilet submission, but we'll see. And otherwise, yeah. Bye! Oh shit! Well, when you finish it, send it to me and I'll kiss you.